Hello and welcome to another Wheel Tapping. I'm your host, Chris Whipan, and today I am joined by Mr. Tony Fryer. How we doing, Tony?
Hey, happy Sunday. I'm doing pretty great out here. It's a beautiful Colorado day.
Yeah, but you're doing yard work today, so that doesn't exactly sound like fun.
Well, yeah, digging a trench for a sprinkler extension too, so it's the worst.
I hate digging holes. That's yeah. I'll pay people to dig holes, and then I realize how much it costs, and then I won't.
That's right. Yesterday we were doing a little like measuring and stuff, and Robin said, "This isn't going to be fun." I'm like, "Well, this is my favorite ditch digger right here, Visa card, right?"
Exactly.
Like, nope. You're doing it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, no fun at all. But speaking of digging ditches, let's dig a hole and get into 18 Nebraska. So this is our game of choice. We got in a quick game this morning before recording, just to kind of, play it again, freshen up, and do the things we do. I apologize that we're a little late this month, but short and simple, Tony and I both started new jobs this month.
Right.
So it's just been, it's kind of been a little bit of crazy going on. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that refresher play was very cool.
Yeah.
You won. But,
miracles happen. Kelly was in the game too. So
yeah, that's right. Kelly was in the game, but we had to play on board 18. That was so painful compared to we hadn't played board 18 in quite some time.
Right.
The 18xx games offering is just so wonderful now. And I was just reminded of oh yeah, painful.
Yeah. It's funny because when we used to play on 18xx games, we kind of had this nostalgia for board 18 because we're kind of like, oh, I kind of miss having this spreadsheet and seeing the work as it happens. And there was always this kind of, you kind of missed it a little bit. And then after not doing it a while, yeah, I'm happy if everything's on 18 games.
Good.
Because what took us about 2 hours really should have taken hour and a half easily.
Tops. Yeah. And that was for a 4-player game.
It was.
Yeah.
And technically we did have a bankruptcy, but we probably had a bankruptcy.
Yeah. We just called it. We called it early.
Yeah, it was good. I had the only reason I won was because I was super aggressive jerk guy. I think that's really yeah.
Well, as we talk about shenanigans, you'll have to explain your jerkiness.
Yeah, because there's definitely, it's funny. We get into these smaller games, and sometimes we bemoan the fact that there are few levers to pull, right? Like, oh, you can really this is the only lever in that game to pull, or oh, it only has this one thing. I think what kind of distinguishes Neb a little bit is that it's got a lot of levers that you can play with and a lot of specialty to it, I think.
Neb.
Neb.
That just triggers my OCD or something. I can't call it Neb. I know that's the title, but I just call it Nebraska every time.
Fair enough. I will try not to trigger you. I make no promises whatsoever. So, speaking of said game, let's see. This was designed in 2010 by Matt Campbell. It is published by Deep Thought Games. I believe it's still available there. Get your waitlist order in now. The player count, 2 to 4. Yeah, I think we could talk more on that later, but I think that's... I've never played it at 2, but I've definitely played it at 3 and 4. Takes about 2 to 3 hours. If you're pushing cardboard, like I said, if it got on games, this would be a 90-minute game.
Yes. Let's just right now shout out Toby. Get somebody to do 18 Nebraska on 18xx games, buddy.
Yeah, it's and just props to 18 games because My goodness, it was just 2 short years ago that you and I were sitting here, and around this time, I believe we were even talking to Toby about this new project that was just about to come out. So
yeah, I think you're right, bud.
I think it was right around the early part of April, and it was exciting times, and just the growth that it has seen. They're going to have to get to Neb because they're going to run out of stuff to do.
It's phenomenal.
Good problems to have.
How many plays you have of Nebraska? I've got 7.
Today was my 3rd. So
today was 3. Okay, cool. Today was 7.
Excellent.
But it's been several months since I played, so it was good to go through it again. You know, I do enjoy the game, but more on that later.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, it hits that nice little sweet spot for, the depth and the player count and the time. It's kind of, there's that Venn diagram of all those things, and I think the corn in the center is good.
Yes.
Awesome. So what kind of makes 18 Nebraska? I'll do it for you. I'm going to try for you. What kind of differences does it have to other standard games? What are the MacGuffins?
Well, when you start off, the auction's different because everything's for sale. You just bid on things until everybody passes, and the high bids win the different privates. So that's nice. So much better than the waterfall auction. I'm not a big waterfall auction fan.
Especially, I think that's really group dependent, right? Because to me, waterfalls it's a whole nother decision point. And I think there are groups that play really well. We don't. We tend to be like, oh, I have everything I want. I'm willing to pay these prices. I'll rip the Band-Aid. I'm fine with that. So I think it depends on your group for sure.
Private companies are, pretty typical, but like Credit Mobilier is one of my favorite ones because, well, you own it. You get $5 for every track lay or upgrade or something. So, and I'm a big fan of the Credit Mobilier scandal, of course, which is why I like that private. And then, when you're done with it, if you don't want to sell it to your company for money, you can just turn it into a share of the UP. So it's right. Which plays right into the whole, actual scandal and everything, sort of, but close enough for this game. It's my favorite private in this group just because of that, historical thing. Yeah,
it was. So Kelly had that, and I think it can be pretty powerful because that's a lot of cash that's flowing in because it's 2 tile lays per company per round.
It's pricey though, buddy, because it's $130.
Yeah,
to buy it. That's face value.
Right, and that's
where the bidding starts.
Yeah, it got bid up once or twice. So yeah, it's certainly. I don't know. It's like the bridge company in 1882, where you think this thing is going to be super strong and powerful, and then, there comes a point where somebody will be like, you know what? I don't need to build anything right now. Yeah. I'm totally fine.
Well, this one's definitely better. Yeah, and floating majors is a little bit different in this game, right? Because like they all. 20% floats, but once we get the 5 trains bought, 20% still floats, and it's incrementally capitalized. But when 50% of the company is sold, you get the other 50%. So it's kind of starts incremental, then goes to the rest.
And you don't start with a ton of money, so it's not like you can open. Like I think we started $350 before private purchases. Yeah. So. Yeah, you're opening at 20, maybe 30% at the beginning.
Yeah, I opened with 30%.
I believe,
Yeah, I think I opened it at $82 or something like that. Right? It was a share. It was kind of painful.
Yep.
So, yeah. So and I don't know, there's another difference, but we'll talk about that in the map and stuff, shall we?
Exactly.
Or the shenanigans, rather.
The map is not a shenanigan, although it can be. It certainly can be. Portions of the map can be shenanigan-like. There we go.
Absolutely, shenanigan-rich environment.
So speaking of, let's hop over to the yellow phase so we can talk about the map and the stock market. All All right, so here we are. Let me bring up the map just so we can kind of have this to talk about. And now I do have. It's not that big. Yeah, it's what's that? L across, so it's not too much.
What the L?
Yeah,
yeah. It's only what, like 9-10 hexes high at most, right? You can see there it gets over to the west. It gets thinner there, So.
Yeah, and then
it's tight.
You have this red off board. Denver is interesting, but it's also blocked in by the barbells with two of the privates.
It goes east rather. Heads east.
Yep, and that's really what it's trying to do. It went north in our game, and then it went east from there. Yeah. But nothing too crazy. Yeah. A little bit of water in the east here. Red off boards. Interesting because they're actually pretty valuable, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not like 20, 30, 40.
Lots of towns and not very many cities, and that's because in this game, towns, if you upgrade them, only upgrade to a city. So you kind of decide where your cities are in this game.
Yes, yeah, which is cool because that means each map is going to be very different from another, which I think is cool. Absolutely. Let's see, this stock market is, I don't have a picture of that, but the stock market is pretty standard, but it's a little deeper than other stock markets we've seen, right?
Yeah. Usually when you have a small footprint game like this, maybe the stock market isn't so tall, so like stock drops don't go down as far when you sell. Right. But this one's pretty deep, right? Those ledges are not as close in this game as they are in others.
Yeah, and it's I think it's another thing that kind of adds a little teeth to it, right? Because the longer, flatter stock markets are a lot more safe because when people sell, boom, you just bottom out and then it doesn't hurt you and your value. But this one being a little deeper, you can do a little more damage and a little more manipulation as a result. I think what happens with a flat market is you don't tend to see people selling stock to manipulate turn order as much because you can only do it for so long, right? But if it's a little deeper, that option stays on the table a lot longer, which I didn't need to in the end, but I did. But I just gave another company $100 for,
For 4 players, I feel like there's I don't know, the stock market stuff is situational, because there's not a ton of companies in the game and everything. So if somebody's running good, you're really not going to get rid of them. But with 4 players, it's a tighter game. And so there's going to be things you might have invested in that you want out of. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's an incremental cap problem, right? Do I give you money to fund your company? Do I do it to hold you back, like give you cheap share price, give you all this $75, $80 now so I don't have to give you $120 later?
Yes. Yes is the answer. always yes is the answer.
Yeah, and I think it's something important. You did mention it with the earlier, but after phase 5, there's 2 things that kind of happen. Number 1 is that when you go to start a new company, and this happens in other incremental cap games too, where if you hit X%, the company becomes fully capitalized for late game purposes. So, in phase 5, it was great to open a company and then get money for half price, which was nice. You can afford that $900 diesel with the $1,000 you just put. Oh, and guess what? Money left over for a token. All important tokens. Because this game, like you said, you can choose to upgrade any of the towns to a city. And when they upgrade to a city, they upgrade to a single whole.
Yes.
So by doing that,
let's talk about that in Shenanigans now.
Yeah. So
Yeah, let's get into the details of that there.
yeah, so you can obviously see where we're going with that, but you can have these cities that'll be very strategically placed throughout the map. So it's very definitely a little more interesting. And with the plus trains, you don't necessarily want to convert so early because it's nice to have to pick up the free doinks and all that. But getting a little ahead of ourselves. I think do you want to talk about trains? Do you have anything left?
Yeah, you just talked about plus trains, so segue, buddy.
Segue away. All right, give me one sec here. Segwaying. There we go. So the trains are pretty cool because the roster is pretty much all plus trains in the green and yellow phases. And then once we hit brown, they become like an M&M train. No, N and M.
N/M.
N/M.
What is it, at 5/7 and a 6/8?
Right, which means the bigger number is the total number of stops you can hit, and the smaller number is the amount of stops you score.
Yeah.
Or count, I guess is the better phrase.
Yeah.
So gets a little interesting because really you're running a 5 train, but you can skip 2 things. Yeah. So
I like those trains. They're like the ones in 1846,
Yeah.
And those will be helpful for the coast-to-coast bonus.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, right? Like when we talked about the East-West map, it's possible to do a coast-to-coast with, you could theoretically do it, the 2+2, but by the time you've got that much track down, they're probably rusted and gone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The 2 train is 2+2, so 2 cities, 2 doinks. Then the 3 is a 3+3, and the 4 is a 4+4. So those are nice, generous trains.
Yeah, and my I had a 3+3 and a 2+2, and I was just printing money for a couple rounds because I had an East-West, and I even forgot my East-West bonus once or twice. So
good. And you still won. Okay.
But the East-West bonus is cool because it's your best city doubled. It's not like a fixed amount, so it encourages you to find good high-value cities and try to, make routes through them, which, usually can also benefit others a little bit.
Double Chicago. It's always a good bet.
Double Chicago, Denver got nice and juicy at the end there, too. Yeah. So that was another good choice. So lots of fun there. The plus trains pretty cool. The
generous.
Yeah, and then I think arguably my favorite diesels of a game because they're just fun to run, which is completely unlimited run as long as you can touch it, you can run it and just double your 4 best cities.
Yeah, it's brutal. It just makes it rain.
Oh my goodness! Like a 4K doesn't sound like a big train, but
no.
I think I had a run. The last run before we called the game was sitting at $520 run. It was a monster.
Run that thing coast to coast too. Yeah, yikes.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely a lot of fun to run a big train like that. Like it always is.
Just one throwback to the stock market, because you talked about like a big run like that. There are no double jumps in the game, so you got to pay your value, but you only clink once, no matter how big your run is.
Right, but actually that brings me to another point we didn't talk about, and that is you can half pay and still roll forward.
Yeah. It was, as long as you pay your value, but you can half pay in this game too. So.
And that's how I actually got my first permanent train, was by being able to, I half held and had just enough money that I was like, well, I still move. I can afford a permanent train. You don't rust anybody because it's like a 5 train, but hey, when you're buying the first train of a new roster, I think you're in control of that at that time. So it's good.
Not when it doesn't rust the train, though. That's when you're really
That's when you're exercising control. Excellent.
Right on.
Other than that, pretty straightforward. They're rules are great. There's some fun little spots on the map you can have some tragic track with and things like that. But I think there's a lot more tragedy to be held. So
Let's do that.
I think we need to hop into the Brown phase.
Let's do it. And like talk about this tragic track and the town to cities, Chris, because I said wait till Shenanigans. So go, buddy, go.
Yeah. So I'll pull up the map here, and the map designer, I don't want to say is a little cruel, but the town placement is really ripe for hosing people, because you can turn that dit that's say sitting right up there in South Sioux City all the way up in that corner, and then oh wait, I'm gonna upgrade that on you, and then I'm gonna drop a token right in front of you, Mr. CNW, and now you have to pay $60 to get out of there.
The green upgrades only have one token spot, so you can like really cork somebody up till brown,
Oh yeah, and or you're going to make them pay to get out, like a $60 access.
Go around, yeah,
right. Which is exactly what went down. Like I think I made Kelly groan twice, and I think once was when I blocked in his DRG and cut off his run with upgrading a town, and then the other was when I kind of hemmed in the CNW. It was only a turn. Brown was around the corner, but it was still fun to do it.
Those town upgrades, they kind of cut both ways, right? Like, okay, I'm running a 4 train, but I'm only got 3 cities. Cool, let me upgrade something on my path to produce more revenue. I hope I have a token available to put there, because if not, I'm opening that up for somebody else. But you know what? They could do it to me anyway, so let's just take the risk if I don't have token money.
Right.
But and then the other side of that, cut is, Chris, great 4-1 run route. Boom, let's put a city here. Now it's a 5. So sorry. Now you need a bigger train.
Yep.
So yeah. And then if I put a token there, so I can just upgrade it and cause your train to run shorter now, right? You're not hitting that juicy red area anymore. Yep. But then even if I don't put a token there, right, you can still go through it, but you got to count it. And if I put a token there, even more the better, right? Because then you're stopping.
Exactly, and it gets really tough. I mean, now it really is only hyper restrictive during green, because as soon as brown pops, those can all turn into a 2-hole city. So
yeah,
it definitely.
There's 2 ranks of green trains, man. So green, it's not over as quick as you think, but
yeah,
it's not forever.
They definitely, especially if you get in there early and kind of host somebody, because you just really like I did it to Kelly because his revenue was screaming ahead of mine if I didn't. Yeah. And I needed to chop his company off. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not to be mean. It's to harm your opponents. Oh, that is mean. Perfect. It's just business, nothing personal, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it also kind of it's not as mega tight as say, like 30 or 46, where if you think you need a token on every stop on your route. But definitely some groups I'm sure are going to play that way, where if you don't have tokens for your entire route, you'll never make it.
These companies just don't have a lot of tokens, so it's not gonna. You just can't put tokens down everywhere you want. You just can't.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, number one, after the first one, they cost $100. Number two, you just, I ran the Mopac. I had 3 tokens. Christ, I would love to have 5, but nope, I only have 3.
Yeah. So definitely a lot of fun on the shenanigan front there. It's the other thing I think is interesting, and I didn't play with them this time because I opted to open in phase 5. I opened the last 10 share company because I wanted to gobble up the free money. But the other thing is these smaller local companies, which I think are pretty cool. Do you want to walk us through what they are?
Yeah, sure. They don't become available until phase 5. Um, when in Brown, and they'll start in Lincoln, that you can see right there in the map, and then there's up in the northwest corner. I don't know if it's pronounced Chadron or whatever, but like there's another town up there that they start in. Of course, there'll be cities probably by then, but you know the brown tile can be placed there anyway, just to, so that they have their starting location, and it's a reserve spot. Um, but yeah, they're interesting because they're 5 share companies and they're fully incremental cap, right? Like they're never not like, even though we're in phase 5, it's not like they get the other half of their money for free like the 10 share companies. That only applies to those guys. But yeah, they're 20% certificates, and I think this is a really cool aspect of the game is they only buy and operate previously rusted trains. So depending on what stage the game is in, you can start the company running a 2+2 or a 3+3 or 4+4, just depending on what trains have been rusted. So if no one's rusted the 3+3s yet by buying a 6 train, well then you're going to run a 2+2, right? And then they treat their money like normal and can buy the next available rank of rusted trains when they become available and stuff like that. So I think that's a really cool reuse of the rusted hardware in the game.
Yeah, and I like that it makes, like, sometimes when you're buying a company late in the game, you're really restricted by where you can go because the map's developed, tokens are out, routes are set and run. So opening up a company that can run in a little smaller section and kind of make a little living in a corner of it, I think is a great way to add late game interest, right?
Yeah.
Like we're used to seeing as part of a development at the beginning of games, but here to see it come in later, I think is pretty cool because it adds some development to when the game's usually starting to get a little stale because, track's kind of done. This kind of livens up some areas that may have been overlooked before. And I really like that.
For sure. And it throws, a couple more tokens out there too. And yeah, it's got some little nuances too, right? Like in today's game is a good example. The stock round that Nick started the OLB there in Lincoln, only the 5 trains had been purchased. But by the time, so he only would have started with a 2+2, but by the time that OLB actually operated, a 6 train had been bought, and so he was able to get a 3+3 instead of the 2+2. He was very happy about that, of course.
Yeah, and then I think, actually, I even think I had bought the diesel before it operated, so I think he even could operate a 4+4.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I don't think he could afford it, but
he didn't have to run a 2+2. Oh, yeah, maybe he might not have been able to afford it. So
exactly.
But yeah. I don't know. I always find this mechanic to be interesting. Yet I've never used it or seen it to be used. But there's this interesting but oft unused or always unused mechanic in the game. During a stock round, your company can act, right? Your company can sell shares. That's right. When you issue during a stock round, which I like rather than issue during the OR. But your company could also take your turn instead of you and buy a share, either from the market or from a willing player. And in my head, I'm always like, well, cool, maybe I want to free up some capital and I can afford to reduce my share in this company by 1, a company that I'm running. And maybe I want to do that because, the company's not the greatest in the world and I want to buy a share of somebody better. So I could use my company to buy a share from me, giving me capital, and I'm not selling the share and reducing the share price, but like I've just never, that sounds so useful, but apparently it's just so situationally useful that I've just never exploited it. I don't know. I just think it sounds neat.
Yeah, we saw like 1 share get purchased back into a company out of the market.
And that was out of the market.
Yeah, and that was just so that, get that share paying into your company. But I see where you could like buy it off yourself cheaper and then the company sits on it for a round or 2. Stock value goes up. Now you can drop more money into the company. So It's definitely another lever, but I haven't seen it used.
Yeah.
But I've probably also played all 3 games of mine with you, so we've probably
I don't
seen
know.
the same group think.
I don't know what you mean by cheaper because it's the same price as the market. But like, not only am I selling one and not dropping the price, freeing up capital for me, I'm also putting one back in the company where it's going to earn more. You know.
Right, but
So,
then
why don't I use this?
right, and then the value of the company, it's going to run twice. So its stock value goes up, let's say $20, so that when you go to buy it in the stock round,
cheaper next time. Yeah,
you're
it's
getting
cheaper now
extra,
than it will be.
Right, so you're getting a little extra money into the company that way.
In theory, unless that company sucks and doesn't have trains, you know. So.
Yeah, well, our group is most certainly a run good companies group. So yeah.
Depends on the game.
It does. It does.
This is a run good companies game. But yeah, but that's feels. Let's talk about feels, maybe, huh?
Feels. I mean, we're already there, so let's just tiptoe into the green phase. Or no, we're going to go to the gray phase.
Gray,
I keep doing that. Gray, green. GR words. So Tony, tell us a little bit about the feels, since you were kind of starting there.
Yeah, I do feel like it's mostly an operational game, right? Like run good companies, but I have seen companies change hands unwillingly, i.e. dumpage. It does happen. Seen some bankruptcy action. One for sure. I'm trying to remember if I've seen 2. But I've only seen that level in 4-player games, right? So, three players is probably the sweet spot. 4 players is, I think, a more difficult game, more challenging game. So kind of, what mood am I in when I want to play Nebraska? It's, I don't know. One thing is I go against the grain of typical 18xxers, I think. And, because I like several different titles at 2 players. And so I wrote down my stats here. I've played, as of today, 654 18xx games, and 86 of them, or 13%, have been 2-player games. Yet, none of them have been Nebraska at 2 players. So, what the hell? I need to do that. So, I really need to change that. So, I enjoy this at 3. I can get in the mood for a more challenging, meaner game at 4. And I really need to play this game at 2. And it is, especially at 4, an operationally mean game. So if you're not into that, you might not do this game. But one of my favorite 18xx memorial memories, rather, is I went to Chattanooga in January 2017, me and Chad Cook. And so on the first day of the con, we walk in after breakfast and we're just like, okay, just looking around. And Matt Campbell happened to be standing there and he's like, you guys want to play Nebraska? And we're like, yep. And so we didn't know Matt from, anybody else, Adam or whatever. But so we sit down to play this and, it turns out he's the designer. And what made it enjoyable is Matt was just telling us all the history, because he lives in Omaha.
Okay.
And he was telling us all the history of railways and stuff and why certain elements in the game are the way they were. And it was just super enjoyable session, and I guess Matt comes to tracks. He comes to Denver. He's got his company is in Denver. So he comes to Denver and we play, but he hasn't come since the pandemic. So we need to, Matt, if you're out there, we need to change that. And he'll, he's pretty adamant about this being a 3-player game, not a 4-player game. But I like it at 4. So yeah, big fan of the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, it just might be that while he has some cutthroat elements in there, it might not be the favorite lever, right? And that's where I would say that even though that lever is in there, I don't mind getting hosed as long as I can work around it. And I feel that there's enough in this game that you can totally work around it. And I think that that's that's one of my favorite takeaways is like, yeah, you got tokened out of that spot, or somebody just dropped that converted your town into a city. Probably in an OR or two, you can negate that. It's just going to derail your plans a little bit. So I appreciate that. You know, I don't feel that way in 30, because when you get those double O's or you get the double dits, those things are just brutal and can completely hose a game. And I'm looking at you, Todd. But I still remember it vividly.
Yeah, and if you have two trains, you usually have two routes, though, too, right? So you can probably, you're going to be, hurting for, like you said, a couple of ORs, right?
Yeah, and I think it's also a little interesting. One of the things we didn't really touch on, because I just remembered it, is that the train limit doesn't drop at the 5-7. It drops at the 6. That actually makes it a little easier to push through the trains, because if a company's doing well like mine was, I was able to buy that 5-6 even though I had two other trains in my stable, and that's not usually the case, right? Like usually it tends to get a little tighter, but you're able to run the
buy the brown one, and maybe you have to eject one of your own green ones,
right, in which case I probably wouldn't have done that. But then there's only two of them. So, and then the next one's going to eject one for you, which it promptly did. but still, very interesting. I really enjoy it. And I'd like to get my hands on a copy one day, because it's that nice lightweight that you can like get out on a school night and, or play at the end of a night when you just played 3 other games. It's got enough to play with, and it's got enough difference that I think it certainly deserves a place on people who have smaller play group shelves, for sure.
Absolutely. And the short play time, 100% agree.
Awesome. So we're going to move on to priority deal now. I'm looking at our notes here, and interesting. But yeah, it's done in pass. Priority deal is done in pass order, so there's no real priority deal marker aside from the initial stock round, when that actually is a thing. But you do have a note in here, so I'm gonna let you go.
Oh yeah. One time we were playing, and Chad got a wild hair, and he went to Amazon, and he found like this, I don't know, 3 or 4 inch high. It's a figure. It's like a man-like figure, but it's made out of it's a corn cob man. So that doesn't mark who's first, and then you go clockwise, but it's still fun to give that to who's first.
But he could, if he's really into it, you could buy 4 of them and then paint numbers on them, and then you take the corn cob.
That's brilliant, actually. I might just have to do that, just because that is so awesome. I mean, one of those guys, $3,
right? It's really funny what you end up doing as a result, like, because I was playing the crew, the deep sea one, and I'm trying to find something to replace the start marker, and I'm like, we get like a little diver helmet, and then you could use that as like the start marker or something. Like, there's always something fun. And now what I'm saying is it's leached from 18xx into my other games now.
Good.
So there you have it. That's pretty much 18 Nebraska, Neb. I enjoy it. I think it's a great little, it's not little, but it's definitely a smaller game. And I like what it does. It's got some fun things going on there.
For sure. I just want to make one more appeal to any Ruby developers out there to implement this game on 18xx.games, please.
Right. I also think it's good just because it gets it in more people's hands, because right now that's probably the best way to get a game into the public's view is via games, right? Because it's going to certainly be faster than getting on a wait list for a year or hoping somebody else will pick it up and publish it or something like that. I think it would do really well if it were published in a full normal publication. I think it's I definitely think it's worthy of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, sir, I enjoyed our time together. It's good to see you and hang out again. Less than a month, or right around a month, we'll be hanging out at Track, so I'm excited for that.
32 days from now, we will be playing Trains together here in Denver again.
Well, you and I will probably be before that because I'm coming in early.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Then less than 32 days from now.
Yes. I'm excited. So awesome. Thank you all for joining us. Sorry again, it's a little late. We'll try and get back to normal here, but life is life. But
next month will be late too, right? Because we're thinking about doing this from Track, so it'll be the middle of the month.
That's what I think. I think that would be the best thing because we can get something in. I'd like to try and get a play of PNY in, so we'll have to talk to Ken and maybe get him on the show.
Well, he'll be at Tracks. Scott Peterson will be at Tracks, so they'll probably both have PNW to play. So
yeah, so we'll have to check that out and see what's what. And I thought that might be a fun show for the next one.
Oh, that sounds great. We have Ken on there to talk about it with.
Yeah. So Ken, if you're listening, you're signed up. So
done. He's sharing my hotel room at Track. So Ken, hotel room, show, they're linked.
There you go. Excellent. Awesome. Well, everybody have a good one. Tony, have fun digging ditches. So
woo.
Yeah.
I'll go out and get dirty now.
Yeah, exactly. Don't drink too much or the ditch kind of does this. I noticed it winds around a little. So try and avoid that. All right. Thank you all for watching, listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. This Week and Each Week is brought to you by Game Toppers. Upgrade your gaming experience at GameToppersLLC.com. Chris and Tony would love to thank all the patrons who contribute to make this show possible. Your support goes a long way to maintaining and upgrading the show on a weekly, monthly, yearly, or whatever basis. We'll see you next time.